Hi, thanks for joining me in today's tip of the week. I'm going to talk about getting your green card through a family-based application using the I-130 form and adjustment of status, which is the I-485 form. So we're going to go through what all the steps looks like from A to Z. I'm Andre Mejer. I'm an immigration attorney and an immigrant. I came to the US from Chile as a child and I didn't speak English and for a long time, I didn't have legal status. I know what it's like to live in fear of being deported. I know what it's like for the police to come to your house looking for your friend or your relative. In my case, it was for my father. And I know what it's like to lie to the police about having your relative not there. I experienced it firsthand. It's those experiences that made me be who I am today, an immigration attorney. And it was due to that I understood that education is your best tool. But that's why I do these videos. I want you to understand the immigration system. I want you to get the legal status you want as soon as you possibly can. And then I don't want you to lose it. If you know of other immigrants who would benefit from this knowledge I share here, please share my videos with them. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, or if you know someone that could use the information, give it to them. So let's jump on our topic and let's find out about the family-based application using the I-130 form and getting your green card with it through the adjustment of status. So let me share with you what those steps are and what it looks like in this roadmap that we have. We have 9 steps to get your green card through adjustment of status. Again, now what are we talking about? We're talking about a family-based application which typically has 2 main components. The first is the I-130. That is where you have to prove that the person applying for you that you have a legitimate relationship with that individual that immigration recognizes. So that means your parent, your spouse, your child, or in some cases, your sibling. The second part is the adjustment of status. That is where you go from A status, whether it's a student visa, whether it's entry without inspection, a visa overstay, or you're under an H-1B or an L-1. So you have A status and you're changing it to a lawful permanent resident in order to get your green card. Now, in order to adjust your status inside the United States, which is the process we're talking about, you need 2 things. An immediate relative, so that typically would be your parent, spouse, or child who's over 21 and a US citizen, but it gets complicated, depends who's applying for who. For example, me, I'm over 21, I'm a US citizen. If I apply for my parents, that's considered an immediate relative. However, if my parents were applying for me over 21, that is not an immediate relative. It's complicated, it's one of those things you just need to memorize. So, document that the relationship is legitimate, parent, spouse, or child, and then you got to change your status. And that's where the government looks like, is there anything in your past that could make you ineligible? In order to adjust in the United States, you need immediate relative and you need lawful entry. Now, lawful entry is defined under the statute as an admission, an inspection, or a parole. So for those of you that have left with advanced parole, with TPS or DACA, under some areas, that qualifies as an entry. But there is a recent Supreme Court decision for TPS saying that entry doesn't change your recent status. So the point is, it really depends on how you entered, what basis you used, and check with an attorney before you do it on your own. So back to the steps. First is, for every client of ours, we do a background check, unless they specifically tell us they don't want to do it. So that means FBI, motor vehicle, and immigration. I want every piece of paper that the government has on you, because I don't want to file for your application, go for an interview and find you have an order of removal, or you have an order of arrest for something as simple as an unpaid parking ticket. Sometimes it gets a lot more complicated. For example, in New Jersey and many other states, you get pulled over, you don't have a driver's license, all you have is a passport. Well, you may have a ticket or an infraction under a name other than what you would normally use. So for me, I was born Andres Yoav Rosenfeld Mejer. If I get pulled over and all I have is my passport, well, the officer might put Andres Yoav as my full name, might put Andres Rosenfeld or Andres Mejer. If I get pulled over a second time and I don't have a driver's license, different officer might put a different name. Doesn't mean I lied. Doesn't mean I committed fraud, but immigration is going to assume that you did, that you lied and you gave the wrong name, even if you didn't. So background check is to avoid that is to confirm that our initial strategy is correct. So if we believe that you qualify for an adjustment of status with a family-based application, the background check is to make sure there isn't anything that gets in the way of that. So step one is background check. We get the information, we assume you now do qualify, that our strategy is accurate, so we continue with step two, which is gather your documents. Well, what kind of documents? Again, it depends on who's filing for you. You need to establish that the relationship. So parent or child, well, passport and photos and letters can do that very easily. Spouse, you need other documents to show that you're living together, that your emotional, financial, and social lives have been brought together. So that could be bank accounts, credit cards, rent statements, taxes, medical bills, any kind of bill that shows up at home in health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, a will, any one of those things to show that the two of you have come together. So we gather your documents, and step three, we're going to prepare the package. Now, because you can adjust in the United States, you can file for everything in one step. We actually call this the one-step green card, where we're filing all of your documents at one time. Now, in the past, we've talked about consular process. When I started this conversation, I said, listen, family-based application has two basic components. First is proving the relationship. That's the I-130. And second is when you go from whatever status you have to a lawful permanent resident. If it's inside the United States, that form is I-485. If it's outside the United States, then it's consular process, and you're going to fill out DS-260. Now, we've talked about the consular process on a different video. Today is just about the one-step green card. So you're going to file the I-130. You're going to file your I-485 to get the green card. You're going to file the I-765, which is to get employment authorization. You may also file the I-131, which gives you advanced parole. Do not, and let me repeat this, do not leave the United States, even if you have advanced parole, with a pending green card application without first speaking to your attorney. I typically do not recommend my clients even fill out the I-131, because unless it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, that's a different story. I'll give you a perfect example. Just this week, we had a client that we helped her get the U visa. Her U visa was approved. She has a pending I-485, meaning a pending application to get her green card, and her father unfortunately passed away. She had to leave immediately. So we did an I-131 for her. We went in person, met with a supervisor, got it approved. She's presently outside the United States. We met, so it was prepared last week. We got it approved on Monday. She left the same day. Now she understands, and she shouldn't have any problem coming back in, but you know, the last thing she wants to do is be right, that she should be coming in, but have to spend tens of thousands of dollars litigating in federal court why the government didn't allow her entry. So it's a lot easier to avoid those issues when you're already a green card holder, because any waivers would have been adjudicated. Anything that makes you ineligible has already been resolved. Before you get your green card, it has not necessarily been resolved. And you don't want to find that out once you're outside the United States. So you're going to prepare everything: the I-130, the I-765, the I-485, the I-864, which is the affidavit of support, and other ancillary smaller forms. But the point is, you're filing everything in step three. Number four, USCIS receives that. Historically, that's within 1 to 2 weeks of filing, you're going to get the receipt. Nowadays, I'm telling clients it's taking 2 to 4 weeks, and for some, it's taking months just to get the receipt. So hopefully they're working through that due to COVID, even though COVID shouldn't still be affecting them, but unfortunately it is. So they get the receipt. That tells you your priority date, and it tells you essentially they accepted your payment. Step 5 is biometrics. That's where you get fingerprinted. Now, government has access to documents that we do not, access to databases that we do not. But at the very least, it's FBI and other security-related services. So do your biometrics appointment. That's usually, again, historically within 2 to 4 weeks of when you got your receipt notice. So within a month of you filing it, you should have received the receipt notice and you should have received your biometrics appointment. Not everyone is getting fingerprinted nowadays. If you've previously had work authorization and they digitally got your fingerprints, your biometrics, they don't need to do it again. Pre-COVID, they did it anyway. Nowadays, they're being more considerate, and if they already have your prints, they're just going to run them. You don't need to go back. Step 6, so between 2 to 4 months, sometimes 6 months after having filed and after having your biometrics appointment, you should receive your work authorization. That's the benefit of filing the I-45 and the I-765, of doing this all in one step. After you receive your work permit, you're going to get an interview, step number 8. Before the interview, you're going to get your medical exam. Why do I do it that way? In the past, when this process took 6 to 8 months, before you filed, you went to see a civil surgeon to get your medical exam, make sure there's nothing that makes you ineligible, and that gets filed sealed with your package. However, because immigration is now taking so long to adjudicate applications, I don't recommend that clients get their medical exam until you know you have your interview coming up. Because the last thing you want to do is show up to the interview and they tell you, I'm sorry, your medical has expired, you got to do it again. Then you got to pay more money and it's kind of stupid, it's a waste of time. So we now tell people, do your medical exam just before the interview to avoid any issues. You show up at the interview, the majority of people get one, but again, it really depends on, is it a parent-child, child or parent, is it siblings, or is it spouses? Spousal petition, almost everyone gets interviewed. Under the Trump administration, it was everyone. Now it's not everyone. It really depends on a lot of other factors, but the majority of people in a marriage-based interview will be interviewed. At that interview, they're going to ask you a series of questions based off of your application and any other applications they have from you in the past. It's one of the reasons why we review every piece of document that immigration has on you. I don't want to show up at the interview and find, surprise, you've already had an order of removal because you were caught at the border, you used a fake name, so you didn't tell your attorney, and now ICE is there to pick you up. That is not a position to be in because USCIS can't give you a green card because the order of removal has to be addressed either through a waiver or a motion to reopen. But let's assume that didn't happen, because if we had that problem, we solved it at step 1, the background check, before filing everything. So you show up to the interview, there's nothing negative, there's nothing that disqualifies you, and you get approved either that day or within 6 months thereafter, and you'll receive your green card in the mail. That's it for today, friends. Thanks again for watching. Remember, if you have questions or comments or would like me to talk about a specific subject, leave us a comment below. We'd love to hear from you, solve any questions or issues you have, and just help you however we can. If you just want to talk about your case or situation, reach out to us. We'll discuss the best path for you. And remember, if we can't help you, we won't take your money. As always, stay healthy and be well.